Shall I start, or does someone really wants to start?
Well, I can start since I don't have a whole lot. It's just like a page and it's questions and comments.
Go
Okay,
ahead.
yeah, go ahead.
So I was wondering how the stone augmentation doesn't kill people. Or like
Magic.
what the mortality
Okay.
rate on there is.
It doesn't
And
really kill people.
Huh?
It doesn't kill people. That's not how I imagined
Well,
it. It's
but
just
why doesn't it kill people?
magic.
Because you're replacing people's limbs. And
Yeah, I had a question about it as well. Yeah.
yeah, I had my question like, how does it work
Yeah,
in
how does
total?
it work?
And
I'm going
then
to murder all my civilians.
Yeah, you're just cutting them open and then randomly they become well whenever the stone replacements have been.
No, I thought of it that you would replace it limb for limb, and then you walk into a giant forge, and then the part that you want replaced is, how do you call it? It just grows over it or something. It replaces the flesh. It's
So you
not
walk through some
believable.
kind of portal, some magical field you walk through, and then it just magically replaces the parts you want to be replaced.
so
In
how
essence,
come
yes.
not
Or
everybody
is there some kind of doctor near that
Okay.
has to manually?
There are, of course, many religious ceremonies and cleansings that need to be held, because it holds a great religious place in the culture. So it's not you can just go walk in and then it's done and done. There's a whole ceremony around it. You have to be prepared.
Have these
Okay.
rituals been written down, or?
No.
Alright.
Yeah, I think it's probably best to get in your document an explanation of all the steps that need to be done before
Okay.
someone can be augmented, and how eventually it happens that they can be replaced by stone. Is it like it's cut? You're first cut open, or does it like do you get a syringe put into you that, and everything in that area just gets replaced by stone instead of flesh?
Okay, so
Is it
just a general
painful? Is it...
explanation on how it works and the steps required for
Yeah,
the
exactly.
ceremonies.
Yeah, that's just
Right.
one thing.
Okay.
Yeah, and there's a lot of little questions I have about that. Is like, which parts are the most important to change over first, and which parts do they save for last?
Well, of course, all parts have different functions. For example, if you replace the legs in lore, you would be faster and more durable. And for example, most scholars will have their neck and vocal cords replaced so they can speak in the Denur language. That's what I called it. The stone language. It's really hard to pronounce. You can only pronounce it when you have been augmented in the neck area. So scholars would, for example, replace that. So it depends on the function you have in society,
Yeah.
which parts you will have replaced first.
And I am curious about how these augmentations equal ascension in the eye of your religion and all that.
So because you become like our god is a stone, is mostly depicted as a stone golem, so you become like him. And that way you become closer to divinity.
Okay. And so instead, rather of like when they replace their arm, they no longer can use it. You're doing it the route where their limbs become magically enhanced through this stone.
Yeah, you basically replace your fleshy limb with purified stone.
Okay.
So it becomes an arm of stone. It still fulfills the same functions as an organic arm. Instead now it's of blessed stone. And in lore that had benefits because of course stone is more durable. But that will not be implemented on the server.
Yeah.
So in the server it's purely for roleplay reasons because the higher rank you are, the more augmented you are.
And my only worry here is that magic is not being worked on at all because there's been obviously a few setbacks, and I've been trying to get in contact with the magic team to get things rolling and figure out how we want magic to go.
But it's not really like it doesn't give you any
Divinity is
spells
different than
or
magic.
anything.
But it is still
Yeah,
magic.
because the augmentation has to do with magic. there's like no
Yeah,
dot that just randomly cuts open and replaces it with stone, right? There's like this whole ritual going on, which has to do with magic. Or
For
Yeah,
what
yeah,
I've
yeah.
read, is the stone is something that's already there. That is, it's a physical
it's a
substance.
physical object. Yeah,
It's
I get
not
it.
a
Yeah.
magical substance. Like,
Okay.
No,
so
no, it's a
you
physical
can just
object. Yeah.
make a chisel an arm out of that
No,
stone and something.
no, that makes sense. But when it comes to the augmentation itself, when it comes to applying it to your body, like how does that work? Like, do they need magic in order to replace that limb, for example, or do they cut it open and replace it manually? Like, how does that work? Do they need magic in order to replace it?
No, I would, in order to replace it, I've not thought of that. I would
All right, yeah,
think you would do, but
I'd say like the stone do it, like let the stone be as magical that it happens itself.
yeah. But when it comes to
yeah, that's how I
then
envisioned it. That
there's
you don't really
magic,
need to
and
cast a
magic has not been thought
spell.
of yet. Okay.
That you don't need to cast a spell to make it happen.
So
So
the
what?
stone just floats and it does its own thing or something like that.
Yeah, yeah. Just you walk in the stone forge. That's the place that I
Okay,
thought
yeah.
would be cool. And then there that happens. So then it
Okay.
replaces the thing.
Yeah, obviously I haven't written this down yet, so that cannot be thought of. But yeah, that was something I had in mind.
Okay.
And I am a little curious if you will add the potential that, like, for failures, like if, for example, your body doesn't take to the stone well, you can't use your arm anymore, or that kind of thing.
Yeah, we could implement that. I've not really thought about that.
Because I think that could
Uh,
add an interesting depth to it, and then they could go further with, like, the Inquisition being like, well, you've clearly lost the ability to use the stone, which means God hates you.
So you get killed, and we use the stone for someone else.
Yeah, and so it's very possible that you could get other people's failed augmentations, and then it's really nervous.
I don't know if I want it to be, that it can fail, because it could also, suck if you've worked on that really hard and then it just fails.
Yeah, but we also have to keep things balanced, so you cannot be an immortal because you're made of stone. That's
No,
kind
you're
of
not
things as
immortal
well.
if you're made of stone. It doesn't make you immortal.
Okay.
Because it has no in-game applications aside from the
Yeah, it has no in-game
roleplay.
application.
Yeah, right.
It
So
just
you're
it's just for
literally
ceremony.
made of stone, so a sword can still cut you.
Yeah.
That's what it's about. Yeah.
In lore, it is of course stronger and better, but that doesn't have
Yeah,
really
and it's
have any
mostly
server
about
application.
the scholars who have their necks replaced,
Yeah.
so they can speak in.
It's
your
mostly
language.
about lore, roleplay and ceremonies, because
Alright,
it also gives players something to work towards, of course.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, I had still a thing. Please, the augmented dwarves, make that your sub race.
Sure.
So there's a definite, clear difference between them.
Okay.
Yes, they're of higher status.
Yeah, and then
Yeah.
like
Makes sense.
there's
Yeah.
two different races.
Yeah,
Yeah.
when
But
it comes to being augmented, by the way, like, since you have to be devoted, you have to be like a fanatic, you have to worship your god. Is there any place for someone from a different race to become augmented in any way?
Well, I as
Or are
the
they all-
diehard Inquisitor would of course say no.
So
but
they're not allowed.
Well, I'm the Inquisitor, so I'm an fanatic to the extreme. But I think we're going to leave that up to, the roleplay when the server happens, because
Yeah.
Weasel and I also talked about if letting, other races worship our gods, that sort of thing, and letting them enter.
yeah, you
Alright.
used to also say some heroic deeds.
Yeah, so we're just gonna leave that up to when the server eventually opens, I think, and then
Yeah, but
judge
that
each
would
individual.
but there would definitely be heavy prejudices. They wouldn't just be allowed to.
No,
yeah.
you have to do you have to do something
Yeah,
very
there's some-
important, I think, to
yeah,
even
exactly.
be allowed
That makes sense. Yep. Alright.
to be augmented, because it's a great honor, of course.
Yeah, exactly.
So
No,
I
that makes
had
sense.
2 comments before my next question. I like the addition that calling the Denur dwarves is actually a slur and should never be said in their society, even though, like, that's a pretty common thing for people to call them. I just thought that was a nice addition that adds a bit of depth to their people. And I love how there's aspects of their god Denuk in everything, from how they look to the language they speak, and, this whole augmentation thing and everything they do. Because I've seen some examples where people say that religion drives them, but you don't really see that in what they're writing. So I'd like to say good job on those fronts.
Thanks.
And I also want to know what the Great Collapse is more about, because you have a bit written on, like, it's kind of this weird thing. Everybody woke up and the mountain was on fire, but you don't really seem to write in Denuk's connection to everything other than he's the savior. How did he
Yeah, I
save
left
them?
Great
Why did
Collapse
he save
purposely
them?
vague. The Great Collapse so why that happened is supposed to be unknown.
Okay.
Um,
Then
uh,
perhaps write a bit more on what happened and why it was so bad. Like were
well,
people trapped in their
90%
homes
of
and
our
that kind of
race, like
thing.
all our cities collapsed. It was like our entire nation just vanished.
Yeah, and even just putting in that little bit of it, it's like, oh shit.
Okay, so a bit more on the disastrous, how do you say that, consequences of the Great Collapse.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just
Yeah, and
make
how
it
did
interesting.
and stuff like how did your god save the few?
I also left that fake because I don't like if I, for
Okay,
example, write down that he came down to Earth and then saved us,
no, that makes
because
sense.
that cannot be proven, you know.
So
Yeah.
it's more
And
of
that
a
would
thing
also
that
mean that our religion is right and all the other religions are
no,
wrong
that
because
makes
our
sense.
God
But
literally came to save us. So I don't like that.
Yeah,
That's why I
Yeah.
left that fake.
you are allowed to do that because the elves also have that. They
Really?
used to
I don't
live
like that.
among the
That
elven
means that one
gods.
religion is definitely right over the other. I like it when it is
okay,
more
that
vague,
makes sense. That makes sense.
Yeah,
So
because
it's
then
truly
it's more
just your kind
realistic.
that believes that your
Yeah.
god has saved them in any way, shape, or form that may
And
have
we
happened.
don't know if he has saved it. That's what we just
All right,
tell the.
that's what it's about. Yeah,
That's what we tell ourselves, basically.
yeah, exactly. He's your savior, but that's it.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's all there is to it. Yeah, yeah.
And I'm also wondering what their feelings are on outsiders and how people are going to roleplay with all of that, since they seem like a very isolated
Yeah, they're
people.
extremely isolated, but that's also something where I think we're going to leave up to when the server opens.
Okay.
Because different groups will have different perspectives on outside. For example, the scholars will welcome the new knowledge, but as an inquisitor, I would be hesitant to allow foreigners into our homes because they could be dangerous. So that's something we're just gonna see when the server eventually opens, how that
Okay.
they
plays
can
out.
just be neutral.
Yeah, that just depends on the different factions. They have different attitudes towards that. So that's just when the server opens, we'll see how that plays out.
Okay. Uh, would you consider having, or like, what would the dwarves be known for other than just rocks?
Stone.
You mean like,
Iron.
Because
you,
my
Yeah, your smithing skills.
Raven has
Maybe.
been running around and she's trying to collect
yeah,
knowledge on
what
the
is
people
the,
abroad.
what they're good
The
at
trait.
basically.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, I've not really thought of anything. It could be smithing, but I find that a bit generic because that's what the dwarves are always good at, and I really try to step away from the generic dwarves.
Understandable.
And also, of course, we're very isolated. I don't really see any trade going on,
Yeah.
so I'm not really sure what I should put
No,
down
but
for the.
but considering that there isn't a lot of trade going on, are you not like you kind of must make your own armor, your own weapons, you must smith your own stuff because there is no trading going on.
Yeah.
And
So you're
the
kind of
empty
forced to,
rock
right?
should be thrown somewhere.
Exactly. So aren't you kind of forced to make smithing or anything like that part of your culture?
Yeah, yeah.
Technology, of course. The
Doesn't
scholars
mean you have
are.
to be especially specialized in it or whatever, but it has to be used or
Well,
implemented in some way. The very least.
the ancient dwarven civilization that collapsed had a lot of technology,
Yeah.
and of course there's a bit of a clash in society going between the religious fundamentalists under the Inquisition and the scholars. However, that's one thing where it's known for, I think, the technology, and that kind of overlaps with the smithing, I think. But it can also be other things like um, yeah, other kinds of technologies outside of armor. But
Alright.
yeah,
And
I have yet to think about it.
And when it comes to professions and stuff like trading and such, like the dwarves obviously have to feed themselves as well. Do they venture out to go and hunt for themselves, or do they trade food? What is it they eat? Do they have their own
Yeah, it's
farms
also
inside of the
like what they
mountain? Or...
eat. I would guess, of course, there's always some trade going on,
Yeah, yeah.
just when groups meet.
Yeah,
I
but they
think,
cannot be dependent on food from
yeah,
outside.
mostly is Just grown themselves, although we don't have any farm in the
Yeah,
build.
exactly. That's why I asked. Yeah.
That's
Exactly.
a thing.
You're
You
gonna be
can
very
like grow
hungry.
mushrooms in underground.
No, yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
that would be a great idea, and
that would be
that
the
would
best
be
indeed.
something that you kind of have to think about, like how do you
Yeah.
feed yourselves?
So that's something we should add in the build, maybe farm.
That would be, yeah, if that's something you want to do, then that would be a great idea. Yeah.
No, it's makes
Or
most
you
logical
indeed have
sense
to say
because
that we do trade solely
trade
for
is
food, and that's it. Yeah, you could
not
whatever you want,
really.
of course.
Yeah, but we're so far up north.
Yeah, you are. Yeah, you're
Yeah.
very isolated.
That's the thing. So trade is not really. If we solely rely on trade for food, I think we would starve. Especially when there's a war or something and it disrupts trade.
Yeah.
So we need to have a farm indeed.
All right. Okay.
Yeah, but
That's a good thing.
it's not for an isolated culture. It's not convenient to be dependent for your food source on other countries. They
No,
can
that
just
makes
starve you
sense.
to death, and you will be submitted easily.
Exactly. So you will have to think about how you feed your folks.
Yeah, well,
Your
fungi
peoples.
inside the mountain was
That's a great idea.
another one, right?
Yeah,
Hit it?
you can grow
Yeah,
mushrooms
that would
and
be the best
different.
indeed.
So this is a weird little nitpicky question, and it's like the last of mine. How come people can celebrate weddings, but funerals are considered a waste of resources?
Huh. Oh, that... Okay, you found
Just
the
that
plot hole.
reaction was
Shit.
good.
Okay, scrap the celebrations for funerals. People are not allowed to be happy.
Well, I thought that was a
Uh,
really nice thing where
yeah, no, you make an
like
excellent
funerals are a
point.
waste of resources, and so we don't want you to celebrate funerals. But like on the flip side of that, yeah, you can do marriage ceremonies, whatever,
Okay, well,
guys.
definitely.
Yeah, it's more like a
that's
marriage
that's-
is a happy occasion and the funerals are just
no,
sad.
but he's right. It is a waste of resources if you celebrate marriage. Why would you celebrate it?
Okay, just
There's no
everything not being celebrated.
religious. I've written down that there's no religious ceremonies around marriage.
Mhm.
Yeah. So that doesn't make sense.
So I definitely like the approach of and like reasoning for like we don't celebrate funerals, and I
Yeah, I
do
think that
like
was
the
a great
note like,
addition.
hey, Denok does not give a single fuck about your wedding. I'm sorry.
No, you serve. Who cares about you, man? Yeah.
So I guess that's something to think about.
I will
It does make sense.
I will think what I do about this. I'll write it down.
Good.
Okay, is that your list? Because then it's up to my list.
And I can post my list of questions in the
Yeah,
dwarf
could
chat
you
if you
just
want.
upload your list at the end? That would be helpful.
Yeah.
I've written
Yeah, I
most of
also
it
have
down,
like
but
my
if I
list, and
miss
I also
something,
have
you
the
have to.
to-do list for you guys.
All
Okay.
right. Just making notes. That's great.
Yeah, I'm just typing my butt off. Oh,
Yeah, thanks.
I noticed.
all the Google Docs. Okay,
She has so many at this point.
Yeah.
I've seen them fly by like every single like,
I'm
hour. There's
oh, you're
another
like
one.
I love Google Docs, what can I say?
Yeah, I know. Well, if that's all the questions here, then it's up to Nikita to.
yeah. I got more questions for you guys.
Yeah.
Okay, augmentation, let's check. I miss a subheading from the base doc. I
You do?
miss
Which?
literature.
Yeah, I just
don't
used
do
the
books.
document that I was sent. So what's that new subheading? Literature?
Yeah, literature. Okay, it might be like kind of not in there, but it's yeah, write whatever books are important to you. Is there more an oral tradition of telling stories? Is everything that's not every book that's not scholar book like burned or something?
Oh, I like what I hear. So just some information about the literature in the Denur Imperium. In the
Yeah,
base
just
document. If it's written down. Okay.
literature. What kinds of literature do you have?
Yeah, okay.
Do you have something to enjoy yourself? And then I miss a bit more culture because all the culture there is right now is of the
Religions, yeah,
religion is
yeah.
all religion based, and I understand your culture is mostly based on the
Yeah,
religion,
the
but
culture mostly
it does
based
not
on
explain
religion.
day-to-day life, special
Okay, so
holidays,
okay, that needs to be included. Okay.
Yeah, ways to
jobs.
enjoy yourself, except for literature. Like, are there any
Yeah,
kind of
like
arts that you like? Do you
Well,
like
you can
paintings?
enjoy
Do you like?
yourself while praying and while doing your duty, of course, as
Okay,
a good
okay,
citizen.
obviously, yeah.
The culture and
yeah, but like
society. So
any special festivities or celebrations
okay,
to
so
your
special
god can also
holidays
happen.
and just day-to-day life.
Yeah,
Exactly.
mostly day-to-day life indeed.
Okay.
What do ordinary dwarves do?
Mm-hmm.
What do they do? What are the professions they work at? What is
Okay.
it they eat? Where do they go when they want to enjoy themselves? Yeah, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Except for
Okay.
going to church, obviously.
Yeah, that was also my list. My list was short.
That's good.
So, is there
Yeah.
still anyone that wants to
No,
add
the things
something
I
to
had,
this?
no, the things I had in mind when reading through the document have all been touched upon. Like, I didn't have a list for myself, but I read through it, and that's basically all that has been that I had questions about. So that's great, actually. Besides that, yeah,
Okay, I sent the little what
nothing
to do
much.
list of
Yeah,
the
thanks.
notes I got. And yeah, then I think this is the most important part to discuss.
Yeah.
Just all the notes.
Okay, thanks for the feedback.
Yes.
Yeah, I think
Good
most of it
luck
is actually
with
great.
developing everything more.
Yeah, it will take a bit of time. Our exams are coming up, so
Oh yeah, I
I
know.
won't
Yeah,
do
I got
any.
that too.
Yeah,
So
same.
the meeting is also gonna be postponed. I gotta send a chat message for that still.
All right.
All right.